Hey friends, thank you for tuning in tonight. Before we dive into this story, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. I love seeing this dark little community spread across the map. Tonight's tale comes out of a lonely morgue in rural Texas, a place where the dead don't stay silent, and one drawer has rules no one dares to break. So sit back, dim the lights, and whatever you do, don't open drawer number 13. I still remember the drive out to Sand Hollow like it was yesterday. You ever drive through a stretch of road so empty that the silence starts to hum? That's what it was like. Just flat land, dry grass, and sky. Too much of it. By the time I reached the edge of town, the sun had already dipped low, bleeding orange into the dust. They told me this morgue job would be simple. Easy money. A quiet place for someone like me who didn't mind long nights and longer silences. The sheriff, old man with a weathered badge and half a smile, met me out front. He shook my hand like he was handing off a burden. "Nothing to worry about," he said. "Few cases a month. Paperwork, cleanup, maybe the occasional transfer." He paused, looking past me toward the morgue building. Then, almost too soft to hear, he added, "Place has its rhythm. Don't fight it." That should have been my first warning. The Sand Hollow County Morgue sits right at the edge of the desert. No houses nearby, no roads that matter. The building's made of concrete, weather-beaten and pale, like a tomb someone forgot to bury. The wind whistles through the vents at night, and when it does, the sound almost has a voice. Not a scream, not a moan, something in between, like the desert itself remembering. When I stepped inside for the first time, the air hit me. That sterile tang of bleach and formalin mixed with the faintest rot you can't ever scrub out. It gets in your clothes, in your skin, even in your dreams. The lights buzzed overhead, flickering once before settling into a dull hum. Everything felt still. Too still. That's when I met him, the man I was replacing. Hank Brewer. Tall, mid-60s, shoulders slumped like he carried something invisible. He was packing up when I arrived. A few old notebooks, a flask, and a keyring that jingled like a warning bell. "You the new guy?" he asked, not looking at me. "Yeah. Sheriff said you'd walk me through the place." He nodded slowly, eyes still on the drawers behind him. 12 long stainless steel chambers, each numbered by hand with fading black paint. But one of them stood out. Drawer number 13. It had a different handle, newer. Heavy-duty lock welded into the front like it was built to hold something that didn't want to stay put. Hank didn't talk much as we walked. He pointed things out. The intake logs, the cold storage switches, the autopsy table. When we reached the backup generator room, he stopped and said, "If it goes quiet in here, don't panic. Happens all the time." Then he leaned in a little closer. "But if it goes quiet and stays quiet, leave. Don't ask why." I remember laughing, thinking he was just trying to spook the rookie, but he didn't smile. He didn't even blink. Before he left that night, he handed me a clipboard. Old, splintered wood, edges stained with something that wasn't rust. Taped to the back of it was a yellowed sheet of paper, a list of rules. He didn't explain them, just pointed with a shaking hand. "Follow the rules," he said, "especially Rule 7. I looked down. The 7th rule was underlined twice. It read, "Drawer number 13 stays locked." Then he looked at me, really looked at me. His eyes were red, sunken, like he hadn't slept in months. And in that cracked whisper of a voice, he said, "Whatever you do, don't open drawer 13. He didn't laugh, didn't wink. He just handed me the keys, turned toward the door, and stepped out into the dust. I stood there for a while, the hum of the freezers filling the room. 12 drawers, one locked, and a silence thick enough to choke on. That was my first night in Sand Hollow, the beginning of the rules. And the last time I ever thought this job was just routine. I didn't really sleep after that first night. Even when I closed my eyes back at the motel, I could still hear that low hum from the freezers. Steady, mechanical, like the morgue was breathing somewhere far off in my head. By the time I came back the next evening, the air outside had turned heavy with desert dust, and the temperature had dropped like the world was holding its breath. Inside, the lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. Everything smelled the same: cold metal, bleach, and something else. Something faint and sweet, like flowers that had died a long time ago. I took Hank's clipboard off the wall. The paper with the rules was still taped to the back. It looked older than it did the night before. Edges curling, letters bleeding into the page like they'd been written with water and ash. I read them slowly, out loud this time. Rule 1. Always knock before entering the storage room after midnight. Rule 2. Keep the lights dim between 2 o'clock and 3 a.m. Rule 3. Never leave the scalpel on the autopsy table overnight. Rule 4. If you hear the freezer compressor stop, wait exactly 1 minute before checking. Rule 5. Don't whistle. Rule 6. Don't answer the intercom if it crackles after hours. The line's been dead since 1999. Rule 7. Drawer No. 13 stays locked. Always. That was it. 7 rules. Simple, almost ridiculous. I remember shaking my head and muttering, "Guess small towns got their superstitions." Still, part of me, that quiet part that never jokes, knew better than to ignore them completely. Around midnight, I went to check the cold storage room. I knocked, mostly out of habit, then stepped inside. The hum of the compressors wrapped around me like a heartbeat. 12 drawers lined the wall, stainless steel faces reflecting the dim light, each one cold and perfect. But drawer number 13 sat apart. Lower corner, slightly newer metal, a tiny dent near the handle, like something had struck from the inside. That detail, the dent, I could have sworn it wasn't there before. I set up for the night, checked body temps, recorded intake notes, restocked supplies. The air felt thick, too quiet. Even the buzzing lights seemed nervous. I tried to play music from my phone just to break the silence, but every song glitched after a few seconds, static cutting in, skipping like a scratched record. When the third song froze completely, I turned it off. That's when I noticed it. The autopsy table. The scalpel I'd used earlier was still lying there, shining under the overhead light. I started to reach for it, but Rule 3 flashed in my head. Never leave the scalpel on the table overnight. I didn't know why, but I picked it up anyway and set it back in the drawer. And just as the metal clicked shut, the compressor behind me hiccuped. One sharp pop, then silence. The air pressure shifted. The hum that had filled the room since the start of my shift was gone, completely gone. And in its place, a faint ringing in my ears, like the aftermath of a scream. I stared at the temperature gauge. The needle dropped fast, too fast. -10, -15. I counted seconds. 10, 20, 30. At 58, the compressor roared back to life. Cold air blasted through the vent so hard it rattled the drawers, and for a split second, I heard it. Something moving. A scrape, slow and deliberate from the back wall, like nails across steel. I didn't check. I just stood there until the noise stopped. Exactly 1 minute. Rule 4. Confirmed. At 2:06 a.m., the lights dimmed on their own. Not a power issue, more like something breathing near the bulbs. I let them stay dim. Didn't touch a thing. Then, faintly from the corner of the room, came a tune. A whistle. Low, broken, like someone who hadn't used their lungs in a long time. I froze, remembering Rule 5. Don't whistle. Only problem was, I wasn't. The sound moved. Closer, softer, right behind me. The melody stopped mid-note, like whoever, or whatever, it was had run out of air. When I turned, the room was empty. But the drawers, they all had a thin layer of condensation now. Except one. Drawer number 13. That one was dry. Bone dry. I told myself I'd finish the shift and quit in the morning. Then the intercom crackled. A dry hiss first, then a whisper that crawled right into my ear. Temperature low. The voice sounded like Hank. I swallowed hard and walked over to the wall panel. The intercom was unplugged, completely disconnected. Rule 6. Don't answer. I didn't. I just stood there in the half-dark, my hand shaking over the power switch, praying the sound would fade. It did, but not before I heard it whisper one last thing. 13. That night, I stopped laughing at the rules. They weren't folklore. They weren't superstition. They were instructions, survival steps written by men who'd already learned the hard way. By dawn, I'd copied them down by hand. Same wording, same order. And when I left, I locked the door behind me and whispered the one rule that mattered most. Drawer No. 13 stays locked. Even now, years later, I still hear that whisper sometimes. When the air gets cold, when the lights flicker for no reason. That same faint voice repeating itself from somewhere just behind me. Follow the rules, or take my place. By the time my first official night shift started, I'd convinced myself the rules were just leftovers from some old-timer's paranoia. You know how it is. Every small-town job's got its ghost stories. Every old building has that one room people whisper about. That's what I told myself. But by 10 p.m., when the wind started scratching at the windows like fingernails, I wasn't so sure anymore. The generator kicked once, coughed like an old smoker, and then steadied into a deep, vibrating hum. The sound filled the entire morgue, low, constant, almost comforting. It's funny how you can get used to that kind of noise. It becomes part of you after a while, a heartbeat you share with the building itself. The air inside was colder than it needed to be, but I didn't complain. Better cold than the alternative. Better cold than that sweet, sick smell that sometimes leaks out from under the drawers when the temperature slips too high. I logged into the shift book, checked the intake freezer, labeled toe tags. Routine. The kind of repetition that dulls your nerves. You start to forget where you are, surrounded by people who don't breathe anymore. Around midnight, I poured myself some burnt coffee from the thermos I'd brought, took a seat near the autopsy table, and let the quiet sink in. No music, no talking, just the sound of the cold air hissing through the vents and the soft mechanical rhythm of the compressor. Then, underneath it all, something new. A faint, steady tapping. At first, I thought it was the pipes. Old building like this, you get that sometimes. But the sound wasn't random. It was measured, deliberate. Tap, pause, tap, pause, tap. 3 times, then silence. I put my coffee down and listened. Nothing. Just that low hum again. I walked toward the storage wall, the metal floor groaning under my boots. The tapping had come from the left side, near the end. Drawer No. 13. That thing was impossible to miss. Newer steel, duller finish, no label like the others. When I got close enough, I could see my reflection bending in the curved metal. I don't know why I leaned in. Curiosity, maybe? Or stupidity. My breath fogged the surface, the condensation crawling across like fingers. It was cold. Too cold. Every other drawer had that faint warmth from the compressors. This one didn't. It felt like touching the inside of an open grave. Probably rats, I said out loud, trying to sound confident, even though my voice cracked a little. Except I knew better. Rats don't tap in threes, and they sure as hell don't stop when you notice them. Still, I crouched lower, checking for gaps or vents where something might have gotten in. That's when I saw it, or rather, what I didn't see. No keyhole, no latch. No mechanical lock of any kind, just smooth, welded steel, as if someone had sealed it shut permanently. The rest of the drawers, they all had keyholes, all needed to be unlocked. But this one, drawer number 13, looked like it had been closed for good. I pressed my ear to the metal. For a moment there was nothing. Then, faintly, 3 more taps, right against where my head rested. Like something on the other side knew exactly where I was. I stumbled back, heart hammering so loud it drowned out the generator. The clipboard Hank gave me slid off the counter and hit the floor with a crack that echoed through the room. For a split second, I thought I heard movement behind me, a faint shuffle, like cloth dragging across the tiles. When I turned, the room was empty. All 12 drawers sat in their neat little rows, cold and still. Except one of the tags hanging from the handles was swinging slightly. Drawer number 12, back and forth, like someone had brushed against it just seconds earlier. I forced myself to sit back down and log the temperature readings. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely write. Every few minutes I'd look up, half expecting to see that dented metal drawer moving or hear another tap, but it stayed quiet, almost too quiet. At 2:47 a.m., the compressor hiccuped again, just once, then resumed. That's when I realized I hadn't knocked before entering the room earlier. Rule 1. I'd already broken it. I sat there for the rest of the night, waiting for something to happen. Nothing did. But the silence wasn't comfort. It was pressure, like the air itself was watching me, holding its breath, waiting for me to make another mistake. By morning, I convinced myself it was just nerves. Every new job has a rough first night, right? But as I packed up to leave, I walked past drawer number 13 one last time. Someone, or something, had drawn a line through the layer of frost on its surface. A single straight line dragged by a fingertip, ending in 3 small dots, like punctuation. 3 taps. A message. I didn't understand it then, but I would. Soon. The next morning, I was halfway through my second cup of coffee when my phone rang. Old flip phone. No caller ID, just unknown. I almost didn't answer, but something in me knew it'd be Hank. "Did you hear it?" That's all he said. No hello, no small talk. His voice sounded rough, like someone who'd been screaming or crying, maybe both. I told him I had. The tapping. 3 knocks. There was a pause, long enough that I thought he'd hung up. Then he whispered, "It starts with the tapping." I leaned back in the chair, eyes drifting to the morgue keyring on the table. It was still early. Too early to be talking about dead things that made noise. "What do you mean it starts with the tapping?" I asked. "It'll mimic next," he said. "Mimic what?" "Voices. Yours, mine. Doesn't matter. Don't listen. Don't talk back." His breathing got heavier over the line, like he was remembering something he didn't want to say out loud. "And if the lights flicker," he added, his voice dropping to a rasp, "leave." "Leave the room?" I asked. "No," he said. "Leave the building." I laughed, because what else could I do? The way he said it, calm, dead serious. It didn't sound like a warning from a man. It sounded like a confession. "You really believe this?" I asked. But he didn't answer. The line stayed open for a few more seconds. I could hear faint rustling in the background, like paper being torn. Then something else. A whisper. Not his. Just one word, distant and wet, like it was being spoken through water. 13. Then the line went dead. For a while I sat there staring at the phone, trying to piece together what I'd just heard. You tell yourself you don't believe in that kind of thing. You make jokes about ghosts, about superstition, until you find yourself alone in a morgue where something knocks back. I decided to go back early that evening. I told myself it was to double-check the logs, to make sure nothing had malfunctioned. But deep down, I think I just needed to see that place in the daylight, to prove to myself it was still just walls, tables, and drawers. When I pulled up, the sheriff's cruiser was parked out front. He was standing by the door, smoking. Didn't say a word as I walked up. just nodded toward the morgue like he'd been waiting for me to go in first. Inside, the air was colder than usual. The smell of disinfectant hung thicker, sharper. And on the floor near drawer number 13, there was a puddle. Not big, just a thin patch of water that hadn't been there before. Condensation, exactly like Hank had said. I grabbed a rag to wipe it up, but when I crouched down, I saw something else in the reflection of the steel door. A face. Not mine. Not anyone's. Just a faint outline behind me in the metal, watching. When I turned, it was gone. The puddle was gone too. Dry concrete. No trace it had ever been wet. I remember standing there, my heart thudding in my chest, the hum of the freezers turning into something rhythmic, almost like breathing. The air felt heavier, thicker. I backed away slow, eyes never leaving drawer number 13. That was the first time I realized this place wasn't just cold. It was alive. Later that night, I called Hank back, straight to voicemail. The message said the number had been disconnected. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that tapping again. 3 soft knocks, just beneath the edge of my thoughts. And behind it, that same whisper repeating itself in the dark of my mind. 13. By morning, I'd memorized every word of those rules. I didn't even need to look at the list anymore. They weren't guidelines. They were scripture. And as the sun came up over Sand Hollow, bleeding through the morgue windows in pale orange streaks, I noticed something new on the steel surface of drawer number 13. Condensation again. But this time, there were streaks through it. Thin, finger-like smears that ran from the top of the drawer down to the floor. Like something inside had reached up and exhaled. That's when Hank's final words came back to me. "If you ever see condensation on drawer number 13, he'd said, it means it's trying to breathe. The second night felt different from the start. The desert was too quiet. No coyotes, no wind, just a long, still heat hanging in the air like the world was holding back a storm. When I unlocked the morgue door, I noticed the smell right away, sharper than usual. Formalin, dust, and something faintly metallic. It clung to the back of my throat, and for the first time, I didn't breathe through my nose. The lights flickered when I stepped inside. Once, twice. Then they steadied, humming overhead with that faint electric pulse. The kind of sound that never feels mechanical, more like a heartbeat that isn't yours. I clocked in, checked the cold storage temps, and pulled out the logbook. No new arrivals that day, which meant the room should have been still, but it wasn't. The generator kicked once, a short, coughing jolt, then steadied again. It wasn't unusual, but the sound that followed was. The intercom crackled, that old beige box on the wall, the one Hank told me had been disconnected since '99, came alive with a burst of static, a long, hissing exhale that filled the room like a breath behind my ear. I froze. "Help me out." The words were faint, wet, and dragged like someone speaking through water. Then a pause. It's cold." I stood there for a moment, staring at the wall. The voice was familiar. Too familiar. Same tone, same hesitation, same accent. It was my voice. You ever hear yourself outside your body? It's like your brain can't find the difference between you and the thing mimicking you. That's what it felt like. I reached for the intercom, my hand shaking. The line was dead. No light, no hum, no sign of power. But I could still hear breathing, slow, close, like something standing inches from the microphone on the other end. Then the drawers started to rattle. One by one, a soft metallic vibration rolled through the room. The sound wasn't loud, just steady, almost polite, like someone inside was knocking gently to remind me they were still there. I turned off the overhead light, leaving only the low glow from the freezer gauges. It painted the room in that sickly green hue that makes everything look slightly off, like a dream you can't wake up from. I stepped closer to the drawers, one hand on the table for balance. The rattling quieted as I moved, and then I saw it. Drawer number 13. Condensation. Not frost, not humidity. Just hundreds of tiny, perfect beads of water forming on the steel face. Each droplet slid downward in the same rhythm as a slow breath. Inhale. Exhale. I leaned closer, trying to see if the cold was leaking from the seal, but the air around it was warm, too warm. And then I saw something move, not a reflection, not light. Something shifting beneath the metal. A ripple, just once, like something brushing the inside of the drawer from within. My first instinct was to run, but my legs didn't get the message. I just stood there, frozen, staring at that slow crawl of moisture and hearing the faint hiss of my own voice echoing from the intercom. Then, the whisper again. "Help me out." A pause, and then, clearer this time. "You're the new one." I backed up fast, nearly tripping over the stool behind me. The lights flickered once, and for half a second, the reflection in the stainless steel showed a shape. Tall, thin, head tilted too far to one side. Then it was gone. The generator kicked again, louder this time, and the hum of refrigeration surged like the room itself was gasping. The condensation on drawer number 13 vanished almost instantly, leaving behind a faint handprint, small, delicate, pressed from the inside out. I waited for it to fade, but it didn't. The outline stayed there, frozen in place. I don't remember walking out that night. I just remember the sound the door made when it sealed behind me, that heavy, hollow click that feels final. I sat in my truck until sunrise, staring at the morgue through the windshield. The lights inside flickered twice more before dawn. When I finally drove home, the silence followed me. No radio, no wind through the window, just that low hum of refrigeration playing on a loop inside my head. And every time I blinked, I saw it again. That handprint, pressed against the steel. Small, perfect, and impossibly alive. By 3:00 a.m., the night had gone still again. Too still. The kind of stillness that only happens in places where death is routine. The hum of the freezers had settled into that low, steady rhythm I'd started calling the heartbeat. And for a while, I'd almost convinced myself the whispering through the intercom was done, that maybe I'd imagined it. Then I heard the footsteps. Slow. Dragging. Bare feet across tile. They started faint. Somewhere near the end of the hall, that narrow stretch of corridor leading to the autopsy room. One step, then another. Then the sound of a heel scraping against the floor. I froze. Mid-paperwork, my pen still in my hand. The sound was wrong. It wasn't the heavy stomp of boots or the echo of hard soles. It was soft, wet almost, like someone had walked through water first. I reached for my flashlight. The beam shook across the wall as I stepped out of the office, the light cutting through that long stretch of dim hallway. The morgue is quiet at night. Always has been, but this was different. Every sound felt magnified. The buzz of the fluorescent lights, the faint hiss of the air vents, even the squeak of my shoes. And underneath it all, those footsteps. Still dragging, still coming closer. I called out, "Sheriff, that you?" But my voice sounded small in that big, hollow building. No answer. When I turned the corner, the lights above the autopsy room flickered twice, then dimmed. The double doors at the end, the heavy swing doors with the little circular windows, creaked open just a few inches, and that was enough to let out a breath of air colder than anything I'd felt yet. It smelled faintly of formaldehyde and something else, something human. I gripped the flashlight tighter and nudged the doors open. The hinges moaned in protest. And there, on the stainless steel table in the center of the room, lay a body bag, unzipped halfway. The zipper teeth glinted in the flashlight beam, catching the light just enough to pull my eyes toward what was inside. At first, I didn't recognize the face. The skin was pale, gray around the lips. Eyes open, staring up at the ceiling. Lifeless, Still. Then I saw the name tag clipped to the toe. H. Brewer. I felt the air leave my chest. Hank Brewer. I stepped back so fast I nearly hit the tray stand behind me. I just kept staring because it didn't make sense. He was dead. Right there in front of me. Except he wasn't supposed to be. Because just an hour earlier, Hank had texted me. I still had the message. It was short, just one line. Don't stay past 3. And the timestamp? 2:02 a.m. I looked down at my watch. 3:07. The flashlight trembled in my hand. The beam shook over his face, those wide, open eyes still glinting under the harsh light. Then I noticed something else. His chest moved, barely. Just a shallow, slow rise, like a sigh. I stepped closer, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The bag rustled softly. Then his eyes blinked. Not the slow, heavy blink of a corpse being moved. No, this was deliberate, conscious, like someone waking from a long sleep. I stumbled back toward the door. The edge of the autopsy tray clipped my hip, sent metal tools crashing to the floor. Scalpels, clamps, forceps, scattering everywhere. The sound was deafening. Hank's eyes turned toward the noise, and then his mouth moved. He didn't breathe when he spoke, didn't even blink. The sound that came out wasn't quite a voice, more like air passing through something dry and broken. "Follow the rules." The words dragged out of him like something pushing through sand. Then his lips cracked into a faint, unnatural grin. "Or take my place." The lights flickered once, hard enough that the room went black for half a second. When they came back on, the table was empty. The body bag was gone. I stood there in the middle of that cold room, every nerve in my body screaming to leave. And that's exactly what I did. I ran down the hall, past the storage drawers, past drawer number 13, which now hummed louder than the rest, and out into the open air. The night outside was thick and silent. The kind of silence that doesn't comfort you. It watches you. I locked the door behind me and didn't look back. But when I got into my truck, I noticed something on my phone. The message from Hank. The one he sent at 2:02 a.m. It was gone. And in its place was a new one. No sender, no timestamp. Just 4 words. "You're late. Clock out." When I hit the parking lot, I didn't stop running until I was halfway across the gravel. The cold air stung my lungs, and the phone in my hand felt slick with sweat. I didn't even think. I just scrolled to Hank's number and hit call. The ring barely lasted a second before he picked up. "Yeah?" he said, calm as ever, like nothing was wrong. For a second, I couldn't breathe. I was standing there, staring back at the morgue through the glass window, the one that looked straight into the autopsy room. And there it was, the body bag, still on the table, unzipped halfway. Only now, the thing inside it was sitting up. I swallowed hard and forced the words out. "Hank, you need to listen to me," I said, my voice cracking. "I'm at the morgue. There's something in here that looks like you." There was a pause, then a sharp inhale from his end of the line. "You saw it," he whispered. "Yeah, I saw it," I said, glancing back through the window. "It's—" Before I could finish, the thing on the table turned its head. Slow, mechanical, like the joints had forgotten how to move. The overhead light flickered, just once, and I saw its face clearly. It was Hank, down to the crow's feet at his eyes, the stubble on his chin, but wrong, paler, colder. The eyes weren't eyes anymore. They were gray, glassy, empty. It looked straight toward the window, right at me. "Don't let it see you," Hank said suddenly, his voice low, almost desperate. I froze mid-breath. "What do you mean, don't let it—" "It feeds on recognition," he interrupted. "Once you look at it and know what it's pretending to be, it takes from you, piece by piece, thought by thought." My eyes flicked back to the figure inside. It wasn't moving now, just sitting there, head tilted, like it was waiting for something. I took a step back, heart pounding so loud it drowned everything else out. "What is it, Hank?" I whispered. "What the hell is that thing?" He didn't answer right away, just the sound of his breathing, ragged, uneven. Then, "I told you not to stay past 3. The line went quiet. I checked the screen. Still connected. "Hello?" I said. No answer. Then, through the static, I heard something new, a faint echo. My own voice, repeating me, but not quite in sync. "Hello?" The mimic was slow, stilted, lagging half a second behind my words. I hung up immediately, chest tight, palms slick with sweat. When I looked up again, the figure on the table was gone. The bag still sat there, half open, but the table was empty. The lights in the hallway flickered as I backed toward my truck. Through the glass door, I caught a reflection. Someone standing inside the hallway near the autopsy doors. Same height as me, same build. And even from that distance, I could tell it was me, just standing there, head tilted, watching. I blinked, and the reflection smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that didn't belong to me. Then the phone in my hand buzzed again. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. Static. Then a voice, flat, low, and wrong. "You saw me." I dropped the phone. It hit the gravel, still glowing faint blue. From the other end of the call came one more whisper, faint but clear enough to freeze me in place. "Now I can see you too." The line went dead. The window lights inside the morgue flickered once more, then went black. I stood there for a long time, the wind picking up just enough to move the dry grass around my feet. And for the first time since I'd started this job, I realized something that chilled me more than anything inside that building. The thing in there wasn't trying to get out. It was trying to replace something, and I'd just given it a face to wear. I don't remember deciding to go back inside. I just remember standing out there, staring at the building, the way the lights over the morgue door buzzed and flickered like they were trying to die. Maybe I thought I could prove it wasn't real. Maybe I just didn't want to leave that thing alone in there. Either way, when I turned the key and pushed open the door, the air that hit me was colder than before. Heavy, wet, like the breath of a freezer left open too long. The smell was worse too. Bleach, metal, and something faintly sweet underneath, like rotting flowers, the kind of scent that crawls into your throat and doesn't leave. The main lights flickered weakly as I stepped in. My boots made soft clicks against the tile, echoing through the hall. Everything looked the same, until I reached the storage room. The door was ajar, not wide open, just enough for the edge of my flashlight beam to slip through. I pushed it slowly, and that's when I saw it. Every drawer, every single one except number 13, was open, wide, empty. The metal trays were bare, tags scattered across the floor like dead leaves. Strings tangled in loops and knots, curling across the tile like veins that had been ripped out. Each tag had a name, dozens of them, but all of them looked blurred, smeared, as if the ink had been soaked in something. I crouched down and picked one up. The name was almost illegible, but what I could read froze my blood. Hank Brewer, and below it, the date of death. The same day I started the job. I dropped the tag. It hit the floor with a sound that seemed too loud for such a small thing. Then came the cold. Not the usual chill of refrigeration. This was different. It rolled through the room like fog, curling around my shoes, swallowing the floor in pale mist. And in the center of it, drawer number 13. It was the only one closed. The air around it shimmered, bending, rippling like heat waves, but in reverse. Where it should have been warm, it was freezing. The condensation gathered thick on its surface, dripping slow, steady lines of frost down the metal. And then I saw the words, written by a fingertip, scrawled into the condensation from inside. "You're next, Hank." For a long moment, I just stared at it. My breath fogged the air, mixing with the frost, And for a second I almost believed it, that maybe my name really was Hank. Maybe it always had been. Then something clicked behind the drawer. A slow, wet metallic sound, like pressure building in a sealed pipe. The steel face of drawer number 13 flexed inward, just slightly, like something on the other side was pressing against it. I took a step back. The mist thickened, and through it, I saw my reflection staring back at me, pale, hollow-eyed, shaking. But the reflection didn't move when I did. It just smiled. I dropped the flashlight. It hit the ground and rolled, the beam spinning across the walls, catching brief flashes of the open drawers, the scattered tags, the condensation forming and sliding like slow tears. And through that flickering light I saw shapes, faint, human, standing in the mist. Not solid, not whole, just suggestions of forms. Each one facing drawer number 13, each one still. The compressor kicked on again, that deep, low rumble that made the air vibrate in my chest. But the sound wasn't mechanical anymore. It was breathing, slow, rhythmic, like the entire morgue had lungs. I ran for the door, but the mist followed. It curled around the frame, around my hands, icy cold and damp. I shoved it open and stumbled into the hall, slamming the door behind me. The latch didn't catch. Inside, something knocked. 3 times, soft, measured, like it was reminding me the rules still applied. I stayed pressed against the wall, shaking, staring at that closed door. The hum of the generator came back faintly, steadying the silence. And for the first time, I heard my own heartbeat in my ears, fast, uneven, terrified. When I finally looked down, I saw something on my shirt, streaks of condensation shaped like fingerprints. Cold, fresh. I wiped them away, but they smeared instead, leaving faint letters across the fabric. The same 3 words. You're next, Hank. Except my name isn't Hank. At least, I don't think it is anymore. By the time the sun came up, I was still sitting outside the morgue, in my truck, headlights off, staring at that concrete box like it might start breathing again. The mist had burned off, and the air outside was already turning hot, that kind of dry Texas heat that settles into your bones before breakfast. I hadn't slept. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that message written in condensation. You're next, Hank. And I kept hearing that voice, the one that sounded like mine, whispering through the intercom, repeating the rules, over and over. Around 7 a.m., a dust cloud rose up from the dirt road. A sheriff's cruiser pulled in slow, tires crunching over gravel. Sheriff Dale Henderson stepped out. Tall, built like the job had worn him down more than age ever could. He didn't even bother with small talk. Just adjusted his hat, looked at me through the window, and said, "You all right, son?" I got out, tried to explain what happened, every detail. The voices, the open drawers, the message, the thing that looked like Hank. He listened without interrupting, didn't flinch once, just stood there, nodding, his thumbs hooked in his belt like a man who'd heard this story before. When I finished, he took a long breath and looked past me toward the morgue. "Hell of a night, huh?" he said quietly. I waited for him to laugh, to tell me I'd imagined it, but he didn't. He just studied the building for a while. The faded paint, the single busted floodlight still hanging by its wire. Finally, he turned back to me and said, "You lasted longer than most." "Most what?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked back to his cruiser, opened the trunk, and pulled out a clipboard. Brand new, clean paper, fresh ink. The same kind Hank had handed me my first day. He held it out. "Write your own rules," he said. "That's how this place keeps order." I didn't take it at first. I just stared at him, waiting for the punchline. When none came, I asked, "You knew, didn't you? About the drawers, about Hank?" He gave a slow nod. "Son," he said, "Sand Hollow's got its ways. You don't fight the rules here, you respect them. That building out there, it doesn't belong to the county anymore. Not really. It's been keeping its own books since long before I got the badge. My throat went dry. What happens if someone breaks them? He looked at me for a long moment, eyes tired, voice low. They get written in. I finally took the clipboard. The paper felt too clean, too empty, like it was waiting for something to stain it. I turned to glance back toward the morgue, and that's when I noticed it. The storage door was shut again, all the drawers sealed tight, the floor spotless, as if the chaos from last night had never happened. Even drawer number 13, locked, silent, untouched, not a drop of condensation on it. The sight should have comforted me. It didn't. It just made everything feel staged, like the morgue had cleaned up after itself. The sheriff clapped a hand on my shoulder. "Go home," he said. "Get some rest. You'll know what to do when it's time." What's time?" I asked. But he was already walking back to his car. The door slammed, the engine rumbled to life, and the cruiser rolled down that dirt road until the dust swallowed it whole. I was left standing there with the clipboard in my hands and the sound of the wind scraping across the metal door. When I finally went back inside to lock up, the temperature had dropped again. I walked the room once, checking each drawer. 1 through 12, all secure. Then I stopped at number 13. The surface gleamed like new. No scratches, no frost, no words. Just a perfect reflection of my face staring back at me. But as I leaned closer, the reflection smiled. I didn't. And right then, I understood what the sheriff meant. The building didn't need to kill you, it just needed you to belong. That clipboard still sits in my locker, blank, waiting. And some nights, when I'm too tired to pretend this place is normal, I take it out and trace the edge of the paper with my thumb. Because I know the truth now. Every morgue in Sand Hollow writes its own story. And once it's your turn, you don't just follow the rules, you become one. 3 nights passed before I found the nerve to open the logbooks. They were stacked in the back office under a layer of dust so thick it looked like ash. Old leather spines, cracked and dry. The edges of the pages stuck together with time and humidity. The kind of books nobody touches unless they have to. I shouldn't have. But curiosity in a place like Sand Hollow isn't a habit. It's an infection. I set the first ledger on the desk and flipped it open. Entries dated back farther than the county records themselves. 1940s, maybe earlier. Different handwriting every few pages. Shaky, neat. Some written in pencil, some in ink that had bled into the paper like bruises. Each entry started the same way. Name, night attendant, then a date. Then a line or two about temperature checks, transfers, or routine maintenance. For a while, it was normal. Just the everyday rhythm of morgue work. Until I noticed a pattern. Every 6 months, give or take, the handwriting changed. A new name replaced the old one. And every new name came with a note. Small at first, almost like an afterthought. Heard tapping from number 13. Thought it was the pipes again. Voices in compressor line. Then, by the end of each 6-month run, the final entry was always the same. Every time. Heard knocking from number 13, didn't listen. I flipped through decades of that same phrase, page after page, like the building itself was writing its own obituary over and over, until I reached the last few years. That's when the handwriting started to look familiar. Hank Brewer. Neat, careful letters pressed deep into the page. 6 months of reports. Then that same last line. Didn't listen. I turned back one more page. The name before Hank. Also Hank Brewer. Different signature. Same ink. Same ending. I went back further. The one before that? Still Hank Brewer. And before that. And before that. Dozens of them. All different handwriting, all the same name. That's when it hit me. There was never just one Hank Brewer. There never had been. Each of us, every attendant who'd taken the job, had become him. Somehow, the name gets passed along like a badge or a curse. And once the building knows you've heard the knocking, once you've listened, you start to fade into whoever came before you. I ran my thumb over the most recent page, my own handwriting now filling the latest entry. I don't remember writing it, but there it was. Night attendant, Hank Brewer. Date, last night. Note, heard knocking from number 13. The pen was still wet. For a long time, I just sat there, staring at my name, or whatever the morgue wanted to call me now. Somewhere behind the walls, the compressor kicked on, followed by that slow, rhythmic hum I used to find comforting. Now it sounded like a heartbeat that wasn't mine, and underneath it, faint but clear, 3 taps. Then silence. I closed the ledger, slid it back into the pile, and felt the weight of the whole building settle around me. The walls seemed to breathe. The air tasted like metal. That's when I finally understood the truth. Nobody works here. We're all just replacements, caretakers for a door that never stays shut. And if the next one coming after me ever finds this book, they'll see the same name at the top of the page, because by then, I'll be Hank Brewer too. It took me a few nights to put the pieces together. The names, the notes, the rules that never stopped being written. At first, I thought it was some kind of mistake in the logs, bad record keeping, recycled paperwork. But the more I read, the more I understood. There was never a Hank Brewer, not one man anyway. It's the drawer. It's always been the drawer. Every keeper that's ever worked in Sand Hollow, every one of us who's heard the knocking and stayed too long, ends up part of it. A cycle, a trade, a name that gets handed off like a shovel or a key. You start off watching the dead, and by the end, the dead are watching you. The sheriff called it continuity, said it with that dry calm he always used when he wanted something to sound ordinary. The town runs on continuity, he told me once. People live, people die. What matters is the handoff stays clean. We all got our dead to mind. I thought he was talking about grief, the way small towns never really let go of the ones they lose. But now I know he meant something else entirely. Continuity isn't a comfort. It's an agreement. Sand Hollow gives the dead a place to rest, and in return, someone keeps the drawer shut. Someone becomes Hank Brewer. I've started noticing little things, the way the temperature gauge drops exactly at 317 every morning, the way the hum of the compressors syncs with my own breathing if I stay still long enough, the way the reflection in the steel sometimes blinks a second slower than I do. It's subtle at first, the shift. You start forgetting small things, a date, a sound, the color of the sky before dawn. Then, one night you hear your own voice whispering from behind drawer number 13. And you know you're not alone in your skin anymore. That's when I stopped asking questions. I just keep the place running, the way Hank before me did. Keep the air cold, keep the lights dim, knock before entering. Never whistle, never open drawer number 13. Some nights I hear footsteps in the hallway. Bare, slow, dragging steps, like the ones I followed that second night. I don't chase them anymore. I let them walk, because I know where they're going. They're just circling back to where they started. There's a comfort in the routine now, twisted as that sounds. The town stays quiet. The sheriff doesn't ask questions, and when they bring a new body in, I tag it, log it, and file it away. Same as Hank did. Same as the next one will. The folks in Sand Hollow sleep easy, because the dead don't wander. They don't have to. The drawer keeps them still. And the drawer always has a keeper. Sometimes, when the wind blows just right, I can hear the faint echo of the sheriff's voice outside the window, drifting through the mesquite. We all got our dead to mind. He's right. It's not just the bodies in the drawers, it's the ones we carry with us, the ones waiting their turn. And when my turn comes, when that drawer finally calls me by name, I won't fight it. Because in Sand Hollow, the rules aren't about keeping the dead in. They're about keeping the rest of us from joining them too soon. It's been 3 months. That's what the logbook says anyway. Time doesn't feel real here anymore. The nights bleed into each other. Same hum, same cold, same tapping that never stops. Even in daylight, I can still hear it. Faint, steady, like something alive under the floor. The tapping used to start after midnight. Now it follows me everywhere. In the break room, in the bathroom. Even when I step outside for air, I swear I can hear it, echoing from under the earth. I don't sleep much anymore. Not since the first time I woke up to the intercom whispering things I hadn't said yet. The voice on the other end sounds calm now, patient. Sometimes it says my name, slow, deliberate, like it's testing how it feels in its mouth. Other times, it says things I haven't done yet, little things. Check drawer 7. Don't forget your keys. Turn around. I used to argue with it, tell it to stop. Now, I just listen, because I've realized something. The more I talk back, the more it learns my rhythm, the more like me it sounds. The air in here doesn't move anymore. Even the vents have gone quiet, like the building itself is listening. And the drawers, they breathe. Not loudly, not all at once. Just a soft exhale when I pass. Like they recognize me. Like they're waiting. I know the sheriff still drives by sometimes. I see his headlights flicker through the office blinds, slow and cautious. But he doesn't come in. Nobody does. Not since the last transfer was dropped off 2 weeks ago. A John Doe from the next county over. When I logged him in, the toe tag didn't have a name. Just 2 words. Keep closed. That's when I knew. This job isn't about cleaning up after the dead. It's about keeping them contained. So, I've added a few new rules of my own. You learn things in here. Lessons written between the lines of everyone who came before you. Rules nobody told me, but the drawer did. Rule 8. Never look at your reflection in the storage glass. The reflections lie. Sometimes they move before you do. Sometimes they keep moving after. Rule 9. Don't clock out after dawn. Just go home. If you stay too long into daylight, the line between who's alive and who's working gets thin, and once you cross it, you don't come back. Rule 10. And if anyone ever takes this job after me, tell them not to open drawer number 13. It's funny, when I started, I thought the drawer was locked to keep something in. Now I know better. It's locked to keep me from getting out. Because I can feel it now. The cold behind the steel isn't just air. It's memory. Every face that's ever stared into that drawer, every hand that's ever touched it, every name that's ever signed night attendant in the book. They're all still here, waiting, knocking, and sometimes, when the power dips and the lights flicker, I catch my reflection in the metal. It's smiling back. Not cruel, not angry, just tired. Like it's waiting for me to finish my shift. The last few nights, I've heard footsteps again, bare feet on tile, slow and steady. They always stop just outside the office door. I never open it. But sometimes I hear breathing, shallow, like someone leaning close to the crack in the frame. This morning, before dawn, I found something written on my logbook in frost. 3 words, the same ones that started it all. Heard knocking, didn't listen. I wiped it clean, but it came back a minute later. So, I'm writing this down now. My own rules, my own record, before the next one comes to take my place. Because soon, the drawer will open again. And when it does, I'll be waiting on the other side. Not as me, not as Hank Brewer, just as part of the cycle, continuity. If you ever find yourself in Sand Hollow, and you drive past that old morgue with a single light burning in the back window, don't stop. Don't knock, don't look in, because that light isn't for the living. It's just the drawer, trying to breathe.